talks are a great way to actually talk about your work and teach people, but also kind of show that you know what you're talking about with that stuff, where you can show future employers that, and they can see that when they're trying to hire you. It's a great way to see what you're about.
Cool. So you brought this up a couple times, and I wanted to transition quick into something you actually just shipped recently, which is the CFP template. Can you talk about the reason for this? Like, what sparked you to make this for folks?
Sure. So at my time at Element 84, that's where I really started to put together talks where I wanted to just submit to every conference that I could think of. And when it initially started there, I was putting together these proposals to send over to like my boss or somebody for them to review so I can get feedback on it before I actually send it out. But as time goes on, like even after that, like I would start doing it in this template form because I was realizing that I was able to take this, and I'm sure you've been in a position where you got to submit it in like a Google form or some random. There's so many different websites to use to submit a CFP. It's amazing. But you have to basically like rewrite or copy and paste that into every single different form. So what I found is by having it in that template, whether it's that template or if you just simply have it in your notes, like I can easily just open up a bunch of tabs with my different proposals,
Yep.
and one after another, just copy and paste everything in. The nice thing is I always know that I have it in my Google Docs, or I have a bunch of different formats in there, along with my speaker bio, where I have that easy to copy and paste. And another thing is not only the text itself, but the different lengths of the text. Like
Yeah.
some places are super specific and need it under 150 characters for the abstract, right? And others, you can write a book about it inside the description. So being able to have a few different variations of that predetermined that I can go in there, see the requirements, copy it and paste it in. It just made my life a lot easier. And I decided that it'd be worth the time to kind of put that out for other people to grab. And it honestly didn't resonate as much as I thought it would. So it's interesting because the people who like I got a lot of positive feedback because
Yeah.
people see that how useful it is, but I expected more people to want to grab it because in my mind I'm thinking there's a ton of people out there who want to get into speaking, right? So this is a good opportunity to find a template to help out with that. But it didn't really seem to be like the case. I feel like more people who went after it were people who were already doing speaking and such and
Yeah.
not trying to get in. But
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting to hear too as well. Because when I saw it, and I'm the latter of the group too as well. I'm like, man, this is genius. I've been doing this for years, but never organized myself enough to be like, oh yeah, this is how to do it. And
yeah.
I think like maybe I don't know if you really need suggestions, but like even like a course or something that could accompany like get your first talk. I know Global Diversity CFP Day
Yeah, yeah.
is like it's a slew of talks and workshops that could be part of that. But also I
That's a
don't know
great
if people
idea.
see the value in speaking in general because I always have to like push and sell like juniors and like
Huh.
mid-level developers to just even speak. Because like when I started speaking on stage at meetups of all places, like it completely changed my career. Like once I was able to talk about a concept, I can write code, and even if I was wrong, I now can explain something in a concept in a PR that will get elicit feedback. And I think it's the biggest challenge when you really start programming is just being able to talk about stuff in a way that it will actually encourage people to give you feedback. Because
Yeah.
a lot of times I deal with this, like even in the last couple of weeks, like I get contributions to my project and like the contribution could be very brief or not, or even lack description. So then I now have to go through
Oh
the
yeah.
files change and elicit a story of what's changed when the person contributing or the person opening issue could just be like, here's the story I want to tell you, and this is why this should even be worked on. Otherwise, it's just like, this doesn't work. And I'm like,
Oh
that's
yeah.
cool, it didn't work, but like, come on, let's like, can I pull some information out of you so that way when I go to fix this, I have a story or user story or something I can apply to this. So I think one, if you have like everybody sign up for this, it's got some really good useful
Thanks.
stuff. Because I think at the very least, like speaking today is so approachable and attainable because everything's remote right now. So like if you wanted to give your first talk, like this is a good framework to get your talks accepted.
Yeah, that's so a couple interesting points there. So first of all, the whole merge request thing, the funny little anecdote. I'm going to paste this link in the chat. I wrote this. So when I first started writing, this was before I got into it seriously. I tried to write this article where I tried to be like memey about it, where like I was trying to get something that might click in people. So I wrote write your merge requests like you're posting to Instagram, where I break down like the different parts of an Instagram post and how that relates to a merge request to essentially provide context and stuff.
Yeah.
But that's interesting. But in regard to the CFP template, I didn't think about it in that perspective that maybe not everybody wants to talk. But the thing that's great about talking, especially now, especially because everything's remote, is it's easy to be able to sit behind your computer and give a talk as opposed to going somewhere that you've never been before and standing up in front of a bunch of people. Of course, it might still be a little bit of pressure to get up and like talk to your computer that way. Like, I'm not saying that there's no nerves behind that, but it's definitely an easier process. And for me, it's been a great way for me to push myself and get as many talks as I can for a variety of topics. But being able to get out there and actually give talks is a great way to show your expertise. So if you're trying to find a new job, or if you want to just kind of get your name out there, generally, like, talks are a great way to actually talk about your work and teach people, but also kind of show that you know what you're talking about with that stuff, where you can show future employers that, and they can see that when they're trying to hire you. It's a great way to see what you're about.
Yeah. No, this is 100% so much truth in that statement, just that paragraph.
Yeah.
Like the best way to confirm to people that you are valid and can do the thing is by talking about it and validating yourself by sharing that you can do the thing. And like, there's so many, like, I've given so many talks. I gave a serverless talk at the beginning of the serverless movement without ever actually shipping anything serverless. I shipped one thing, and it was like this, like, one to prove the concept and the experience, and then I just talked about ideas of what you could do with it. And because I did this thing called talk-driven development, which is, or conference-driven development, really, is what it was. And I would just think of ideas of what I want to build, submit a talk or abstract around that, using a very similar template to what you have, and see what gets accepted. So, like, in the last year, I submitted talks on GitHub Actions, using CI/CD, rebuilding Netlify from scratch with GitHub Actions, which is like,
Interesting.
It's not what I ended up getting, like, accomplishing. But while giving the talk, I was able to force myself to then go build the things. I was also given a lot of open source talks, to sort of like my thoughts on how you should approach open source. And it was like, I didn't have all the solutions. I just had an idea, and I had a project which is open sourced as well. But like, just being able to sort of organize your thoughts, have it prepared and ready. Like, so many talks have actually got accepted because I just had the template completed, and I saw it on Twitter or somewhere. It's like, CFP closes tomorrow. Submit your talks if you want to get accepted. Which usually when they tweet that, it means they don't have enough talks. So I'm like,
right.
Oh, here's mine. And then I get accepted. And I'm speaking like 3 times in the next month. So like, it's an opportunity that I think everybody should take advantage of at least once. If speaking is not your thing, definitely write a blog post. You can leverage the same template, really, to support your blog post too as well, your future blog post.
Yeah, for sure. And it's interesting. I've definitely been in that same boat where, waiting for that tweet to come out, and all of a sudden I open up all my tabs and make sure I just copy and paste everything over. The nice thing, I don't know if you've ever used Papercall before. I think it's papercall.io. Yep. Like, you can save your talks in there, which is amazing, but not all companies actually use that, or organizations use that.
I think it's like hit or miss. Yeah, Papercall, if y'all aren't familiar, I'll drop this in the chat as well. But I even have like an event alert set up there, so like anytime JavaScript or React comes up, that way I can. Yeah, I've been a part of like different Slack groups of speakers who share and event organizers, and it's also been a great end, because then you could also pitch your ideas as well. So if like someone's like, because honestly, I don't know if I've actually heard of any bad ideas. I think the bad ideas is if you start comparing writing code to making pasta, I think you've lost me. The amount of times I've seen that talk in different like flavors is like, let's get some original ideas. But if you don't go to conferences, you don't know that's been an overused example, like cooking and code. Make pasta while you're doing a remote call. I mean, that would be interesting. If you're making spaghetti and you finish it within 30 minutes, or eggs. Lightning talk, making hard-boiled eggs. That would be a great analogy for...
that would be very interesting.
Creating deploys and build systems. But yeah, I mean, this thinking outside the box is why I have a hip-hop talk about GraphQL, is that I've seen a lot of the examples over and over again. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and like another interesting theme about all this, like whether it's blog posts or talks and everything, like one thing that people sometimes get discouraged about is talking about the same thing that maybe an expert in the field who's been doing this for 20 years has been doing. But that's absolutely like that kind of lends itself into the imposter syndrome. But the thing that people don't realize is maybe you have a different take on it. Maybe you have a different way and perception at looking at a problem, whether you're brand new to it, like you're saying the driven development, right? Like you have a completely different perspective on that than somebody who's been doing it for 20 years because you have the empathy of somebody who's learning it for the first time if
Yeah.
you're doing it as part of that. So I think I really encourage people to go out there and submit talks. Even though you might see somebody doing it out there, still submit a talk and see if the worst case is they decline it and you just get an email notification telling you about that. Like it's not a big deal. Nobody knows about it except for the organizers, and you can go submit to another one.
Yeah. And quick time check. I know we just hit the scheduled time ending, but Philip actually had a good question that I'd love to get your thoughts on, which is are you guys happy about remote? Does it lack the at all lack the atmosphere, or I guess the previous atmosphere?
Sure. So I have kind of like two viewpoints here. So as a speaker, like for me getting into speaking, it's been brilliant because I've been able to speak at like I've been submitting so many CFPs all over the place just so I can start talking and like getting my name out there and stuff. So from that regard, it's been amazing that I can do it comfortably in my home and with my little setup here. As a person who's going to a conference, like it's absolutely not the same. I really feel that we need to learn some of the lessons from these remote conferences where being able to include people who might not normally be able to go to those conferences. That's something that's been great about that. We haven't necessarily solved it yet, but there's totally a different vibe going into a person being able to communicate with people face to face, and like it's a completely different interaction with people. And I don't think people have really solved the like I know some people have like the hallway chats and stuff, but it
Yeah.
ends up kind of being a little bit awkward.
You mean with like the
At least
video
at least
on?
they're trying. Yeah, like it ends up being a little awkward, and at least they're trying to figure out solutions around it. But yes, like minus one vortex says they love the remote concept. Like it's a great way that if you can't make it to the conference in person, not everybody can afford that,
Yeah.
or just generally make it to those. Like it's a great way to be able to provide that concept for others. But there's still something about being at a conference in person that I definitely miss.
Yeah, I mean the organic like that hallway track thing that you mentioned, like cameras on, everybody looking at each other awkwardly, like that's a situation that I thrive in person. So like you see a circle of people hanging out and like, hey, those are nice shoes over there. You all ever heard of JavaScript or a Deno or something? And then you strike up the conversation and then it goes well. But when everybody's like waiting their turn to speak and like, or one person's overpowering the conversation or no one's talking, like it's just, it gets a little awkward, which is like, I like the chat version of that where you just jump in a chat and everybody just throws like examples or link, or you have like how we have here, we have like the two talking heads that can interact with chat and pull out information and answer questions. Like I think that works well, but I think we're still sort of figuring this out and molding and navigating through this waters and this space. But I 100% agree that the experience has to change, and I don't think we're going to be able to bring everything that happened in person to the remote experience. But what I do like, and folks who follow me know this that already, is like I can give a whole conference talk today. Like we actually just did a whole like a conference panel just now, like not even realizing it.
Yeah.
But like I can literally just think of a topic, write a talk, hit record, and then go put it up on YouTube. And for that reason, I feel like conferences are changing because like I'm actually I haven't said this yet, but I'm speaking at PyCon. And
Oh, nice.
which I'm looking forward to it. I've never spoke at a conference to that scale, other than GitHub Universe.
Yeah.
But I'm speaking there, and it's a pre-recorded talk, so that's like a YouTube video, and I already have the experience and the setup to make that happen.
Exactly. So like from my viewpoint, that kind of thing, like it's easy for me as a speaker to be able to get that over to somebody. There's a lot less pressure, especially when it's pre-recorded. And the thing that I like is when it is pre-recorded, I can hop in the chat and answer questions right away for people. Even if there is a live Q&A after, like I love being able to interact with the people as they're watching the talk.
Yeah, and Vortex actually is the book style conferences where it's over the course of a couple days or a week or a couple weeks where there's an active conversation. So this is an example he's bringing up, and I've actually experienced this and I liked it a lot. Active conversation happening in a Slack or Discord, but you all come together at this time to watch a talk. So then you can like talk about it throughout the week.
Interesting. I've done like a watch through of a talk before, and I've done a book club online too, but I haven't done it for the conference style. That's a really great idea. I like that.
Yeah, yeah. I think the Snowpack guys, I forget what their company name is. I've talked to them so many times, but Fred, they held a conference, which is the ES Next Conf, and it was that style, where over the course of days you watch 2 or 3 talks, but the chat was open, the Discord was open to have the conversation. So there's no pressure of you like to remove your day to watch this. But if you wanted to, you can watch a couple of those videos, and then you jump in the chat. You get to hang out with like really cool folks, but you're all coming together for this reason. So
Yeah.
that experiment is something I'd love to experiment with, like future like open source events and open source events as well.
Yeah, and like there's something very valuable about those kind of conversations, because like sometimes I feel like sometimes some of the best lessons are in those conversations where like if you're presenting something, like even if you're presenting something as new, maybe you're slightly wrong on something. Of course, there's going to be people who troll for that, like those type of people are out there, but there's also people who want to engage in the conversation, help you learn like why something else might be a little bit better, or like collaborating on a solution to something better, right? Like there's a lot of conversations that's where like a lot of innovation comes from, in my opinion.
Yeah.